Today's story was written by Reddit user OGGruntCom. The meteors pierced the sky's barrier like bullets through skin. The response from the ground was thunderous. Tracers of all sizes shot into the sky in a desperate attempt to stem the oncoming tide of rage. All remaining craft capable of fighting raced upwards towards the behemoth-sized shadows looming above the capital city of Joltan Prime. The everyday bustle of the major city came to a halt as aliens of different species filled its streets. Their eyes, or what they used for eyes, examined the space above. Several flashes of light stretched across the sky, wrapping the horizon in flame. Arms, tentacles, tendrils, and more stretched skyward, pointing out notable moments as the meteors maintained their calculated trajectory. Hulls burned within Joltan's atmosphere. Eruptions of reactor cores lit the shadows surrounding them. Joltan Prime's fleet consisted of the best that the galaxy had to offer, ships ranging from small to the size of continents, and its citizens watched as the proud fleet was torn apart. At first, there were cheers and awe, as if they were watching a sporting match, but as their beautiful ships cracked and spilled the bodies of their peers, a sense of dread began to wash away their feelings of invincibility. Joltan had been home to the galaxy's most influential members for as long as any species could remember. Weapons were not used lightly on Joltan soil. Each conflict was a debate, a transaction, a matter of strategy and credits. The planet had only known prominence, but now it would be introduced to something many other worlds knew all too well. War has come to Joltan Prime. There was no escape, no sheltering. Joltan shall no suffering. The city's ancient alarm system sprang to life, shocking the populace back into reality. They weren't witnessing an art show. They were watching their world's desperate fight against the rising tide. And it was losing. The streets began to move again, like veins on a mechanical beast. Alarms shocked the population back to life like a defibrillator. The first scream pierced the silence as shock and awe gripped the crowd at the sight of humanity's flagship. The TRN Alamo came into view beside the planet's spaceport and final defensive installation above Joltan. A massive beam of light fired into the hovering spaceport, cutting through it like a blade through silk. A barrage of missiles followed, tearing apart the broken structure above. This event was silent, but large and bright enough to strike true fear across the entire hemisphere that witnessed it. What came next was unregulated panic. The death count surged from several thousand per day across the planet to 300,000 before a single Terran boot even touched the ground. Joltan's image of safety shattered within its atmosphere, along with the order that came with it. Looting, raiding, murder and bribery ran rampant within Joltan's cities. The most prominent among them desperately pleaded with the Terran state for passage out, met only with silence. The few ships that chose to leave were promptly struck down by a hail of missiles and swarming fighter craft. As the meteors drew closer and closer, the panic grew out of control. The first usage of the SODT program had come to pass, and it will be remembered. Terra's Special Orbital Drop Trooper Program, SODT, was born during the peace accords following the last unification war. While flags were lowered and borders erased, one lesson finally stuck: humanity must give its heroes a path. There had been many failures in the past to care for those who fought for their nations, so a program was presented for those who still wished to serve. Not for their countries, but for humanity as a whole. The SODT was a sacred pact between a unified species and those willing to fight again, called to action only when approved by mankind's elected Prime Minister and the Congressional Committee. These warriors were the last card to be played when all else failed. Benefits of enlistment: immediate financial security, 10 times the veterans' full expected pension deposited directly to their family upon acceptance. No need to wait, no death required. Prime citizenship. Families are granted top-tier Terran citizenship, priority healthcare, education, housing, and interstellar travel clearance across all core and allied worlds. Full physical restoration. Pre-deployment regenerative therapy, prosthetics and cybernetic upgrades, scars removed, bodies rebuilt, performance enhanced. Legacy protection. Each enlistee receives digital and physical memorials upon acceptance. Their stories are entered permanently into the Terran Legacy Archive. For those who declined SODT enrolment, the Veteran Integration Directive VID was established, offering many of the same benefits, though at reduced levels. The SOD Trooper was equipped with the most advanced weapons and armour humanity could offer. Once thawed, they were immediately briefed on current events and upcoming missions, with the full legal right to deny those orders and return to civilian life. Few rarely ever do. Each flaming meteor held a squad of SOD troopers, men and women who pledged their lives, and their chance at a normal one, for the benefit of mankind. They were humanity's vanguard. The once sheathed blade let loose upon Jolton Prime. They are the ones who run toward the cries for help from their fellow man, and the ones who carry out the will of a species that refuses to die quietly. Each impact, the vanguard emerged. Adorned in black and red armour, their weapons already firing at distant targets, shoulder-mounted rockets screamed into beasts of war pulled from retirement on Jolton Prime, ripping them apart with the sheer kinetic force unleashed. Nothing could be denied to the SODT overseer. All previous treaties of war were suspended for the duration of the SODT deployment. Chemical warfare, subterfuge, cluster mines, IEDs, VBIEDs, drone warfare, nuclear weapons, tactical nukes, even biological munitions were authorised across every conflict zone on Jolton. If survivors are encountered, the Terran military, separate from SODT, would extract them to one of the few secured moons. The planet grew sick from the infliction of war. Its skies darkened. Its oceans blackened and boiled. Its vast cultured ecosystems were stained with blood. Chemicals and oil. Cities were laid barren. Glass sculptures from the galaxy's finest artists turned to murals of death. Blood ran in the streets. Flames scorched the rest. Anyone found with a weapon was promptly engaged and destroyed. The campaign became so destructive that Terra was forced to awaken the Special Operations Retrieval Task Force, SORT, to rein in the SODT. It required an entire battalion of SORT operators to track, subdue, and cryo a single company of SOD troopers, descendants of Canadian, Polish, and Australian bloodlines. The reports of how they secured a massive stronghold in Jolton Prime's Western Hemisphere were permanently removed from public record, designated Need to Know, and almost entirely redacted. When the Terran armies reached the final stronghold on Jolton Prime, a decision had to be made. They needed the galaxy to understand, so it was left up to a vote. Humanity made its decision. Jolton Prime's last holdout is to be broken, gutted, and the remaining traitors discarded into the cosmos. Weapons, money, valued items, anything that wasn't necessary was seized by Terra and given to the fallen families. The most influential of the Joltons were tried for their crimes against mankind, while the rest were sent in exile from the galactic community, with a clear understanding that if any of Jolton's old allies come to support them, it will be treated as an act of war. Once the deed was done, the SODT was recalled, with the assistance of SORT. Each trooper was offered the chance to return to service or be released from contract. Once sorted, humanity slowly receded back to its territory, with an official declaration. No one dared approach the system. Jolton Prime was reclassified from a Gaia world to a Death World Class 3, and so the fires dimmed. What remained of Jolton Prime was not peace, but silence. The kind that comes after the screaming, after the pleading, after the skies have nothing left to burn. The Terrans did not linger. They did not build statues, offer apologies, or explain their reasoning. They simply left. Jolton Prime, once a beacon of influence, control and order, was now a tomb. Not because humanity hated it, but because they needed the galaxy to remember. Their message was burned into the soil, etched in orbit, and whispered in every radiation-scorched wind that blew across the ruins. And you will know suffering.